to meeting number 14 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of January 25th, 2021. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. So you are aware, the webcast will always show the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. To ensure an orderly meeting, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. Members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor, English, or French. For members participating in person, proceed as you usually would when the whole committee is meeting in person in the committee room. Keep in mind that directives from the Board of Internal Economy regarding masking and health protocols are in effect. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you by name. If you are on the video conference, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. Those in the room, your microphone will be controlled as normal by the Proceedings and Verification Officer. As a reminder, all comments by members or witnesses should be addressed to the chair. When you are not speaking, your mic should be on mute. With regard to a speaking list, the committee clerk and I will do the best we can to maintain the order of speaking for all members, whether they are participating virtually or in person. Pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the committee is meeting today to continue its study on the impact of COVID-19 on the aviation sector. Now I would like to welcome our witnesses. From the Canadian International Freight Forwarders Association, we have Bruce Rogers, the Executive Director, as well as Julia Guzelevich, Public Affairs Manager. From Downsview Aerospace Innovation and Research, we have Samantha Anderton, Executive Director, and Andrew Petro, Chairman of the Board. From the Greater Toronto Airports Authority, we have Ian Clark, Chief Financial Officer, Hilary Marshall, Vice President, Stakeholder Relations and Communications. From NAV Canada, we have Ray Bone, President and Chief Executive Officer, and Jonathan Bagg, Director, Stakeholder and Industry Relations. From PASCAN Incorporated, we have Julian Roberts, President and Chief Executive Officer, and Yanni Gagnon, Vice President and Chief Financial Officer. And finally, from Porter Airlines, we have Robert Luce, Executive Chairman. So with that, to all of you, welcome, and to members of the committee, welcome to you as well. And we'll start our witnesses off 5 minutes each. We'll start off with the Canadian International Freight Forwarders Association, Mr. Rogers and Ms. Guzelevich. To you, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Chair. Dear members, Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities, we thank you for the invitation to appear today and for the opportunity to present our statement. I have provided a brief description of our organization with our briefing notes yesterday and would assume that the committee would prefer that I move directly to our statement and the question period. Our industry is experiencing the biggest change in aviation in our lifetime, perhaps since deregulation. The dramatic drop in demand for passenger air transport due to COVID-19 pandemic and containment measures cut capacity even deeper, as approximately half of global air cargo was carried in the belly hold of passenger aircraft. At this point in time, there is great uncertainty as to how changes will shake out in the long term, although we are conscious of the fact that the aviation sector will experience severe long-term disruptions and perhaps ever-changing consequences. Canada is recognized globally as a strong, stable, and reliable trading nation and one of the best places in the world to invest and start a business. The availability and security around cargo capacity in the air sector assists in providing trade and economic prosperity. We come today to this committee on behalf of our freight forwarding members, concerned with the following current trends facing the aviation industry relating to the movement of cargo. 1, the elimination of cargo capacity in passenger jet belly holds, and the recent elimination of certain large aircraft types from route circulation. This has led to significantly increased costs and the addition of ad hoc charter flights. 2, network changes and reduced schedules will affect the smaller and/or remote centers, which will be disadvantaged. And 3, additionally, supply chain handoffs for dangerous goods, ground handling services, and additional fees and surcharges to recoup business losses at airport facilities and/or by carriers. We understand that the first item on the agenda will be relating to the impact of the air transit sale on the aviation sector. This is of little consequence to our freight forwarding members, as the carrier traditionally has little capacity for cargo movements, but we look forward to the other items on the agenda. We would like to thank the committee for recognizing this as an area of rapid and nerve-wracking change and challenges. We respect the committee's involvement in following the developments closely and anticipate the recommendations of policy changes as they become necessary. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Were we going to have the second speaker on behalf of your organization, or are you good to go?
I think we are good to go at this point. Thank you very much.
Thank you. We'll now move on to the Greater Toronto Airports Authority. Mr. Clerk and Ms. Marshall, the floor is yours for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of the GTAA, my colleague Ian and I are happy to be here to present to you today. I guess I can start by saying on behalf of the entire aviation industry, some of whom are represented here, and possibly everyone in Canada, COVID sucks. And while it certainly feels like a race to the bottom with other hard-hit industries, in spite of these efforts to push through and do everything we can to survive these toughest times, the pain is particularly acute at Canadian airports, notably Toronto Pearson. As you know, Toronto Pearson is Canada's largest airport. In 2019, we welcomed over 50 million passengers. And the airport is an anchor employer in the second largest employment zone in the country, which contains 300,000 jobs. Feels like we see daily headlines about job cuts related to Toronto Pearson, from frontline security screening jobs, 500 of which were just cut 2 weeks ago, to advanced roles like air traffic controllers and engineering or construction roles tied to the massive capital projects that were underway at Pearson. We represent a vast ecosystem of what were once stable airport jobs that have now been decimated by the impacts of COVID on our sector. Pre-COVID, more than 400 companies operated on the grounds at Toronto Pearson, and 68% of our employees resided in Toronto and Peel region, as many of the local MPs represented here would know. And these jobs and economic benefits aren't just tied to the area around Pearson. Pre-COVID, the airport contributed to 6% of the province's GDP. We're proud of the role airport workers play in bringing Canadians home at the beginning of the pandemic. And we're likewise proud of the role we played in ensuring that supply chains remain open for vital cargo like protective personal equipment and vaccines. Last week, the Prime Minister announced mandatory COVID testing for all international travelers coming into Canada. This is a welcome requirement, and it's one the GTAA and other stakeholders have been recommending in terms of mandatory testing for some time. Arrivals testing began at Pearson on January 6th and was made mandatory by the province of Ontario for any international travelers remaining in Ontario past this Monday. Studies show that arrivals testing quickly identifies asymptomatic positive travelers and allows them to be referred to public health for proper management. We support a science-based approach with clear standards on testing that can be implemented by Canadian airports. And last June, we moved quickly to introduce our own Healthy Airport program. As you know, the aviation sector has been devastated by the impacts of the pandemic, as have many other sectors. At the airport, we've seen a reduction of jobs by approximately 68%. Over and above well-publicized airline layoffs, as I mentioned before, we've seen frontline jobs being reduced. And Toronto Pearson is experiencing a general decline in passenger numbers in the range of 85 to 90% compared to 2019 in recent months. And with these new restrictions that were implemented and announced last week, we expect those numbers to be further reduced. In the third quarter of 2020, our passenger traffic was down 88% from the same period in 2019, and revenues were reduced by 63%. We made the difficult decision in July to reduce our workforce by 27%, eliminating some 500 roles. We also dramatically decreased operating and capital expenditures, and we borrowed heavily and taken the unprecedented step of asking our bondholders to relieve us from our debt covenants for 2020 and 2021. We have shuttered basically 45% of Toronto Pearson. Unfortunately, the worst doesn't appear to be over, and the year has begun with significant additional challenges. These include the emergence of new variants and continued and stringent traveling restrictions, stay-at-home orders, and general confusion related to testing requirements.
1 minute, Ms. Marshall.
I guess what I want in particular to say is that for many months, we've been asking the federal government to waive rent for 2020 and 21. The government waived rent for 2020 and has offered a deferral for 2021. In the interest of getting through this very difficult period, we'd ask that a waiver be implemented instead. We have asked that of the government. It reduces our expenses at a time when revenue is seriously impacted. So we're urging the government to revisit this decision and provide a rent provide a rent waiver instead of just a deferral. Thanks very much for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Well done. We're now going to move on to Pascan Inc. We're going to ask Ms. Julian Roberts as well as Yanni Gagnon to speak. To both of you, you have 5 minutes. The floor is all yours.
Oui, alors bonjour.
Hello. This will be in French. My name is Yanni Gagnon, and I'm co-owner of Pascan Aviation. And in this statement, we will talk about issues that have to do with regional air transport. And my associate, Julian Roberts, will be here to answer questions. Here's a brief overview of our company. We're not developers. We're full-fledged certified operators. We're 100% Canadian-owned and based in Quebec. We've been in operation for more than 20 years, and our mission is to connect regions to each other and to major urban centers. We have more than 130 employees in the regions, and we currently offer flights throughout eastern Quebec and Labrador, and we serve 10 airports daily. We have 7 BA Jetstream 3200s, 19-seat configuration, 4 SAB 340Bs, 34-seat, and we're about to acquire an additional 3 to 6 SABs. And we have impeccable safety and compliance record with Transport Canada with no accidents since the beginning of our operations. Pre-pandemic, we were flying more than 80 flight segments per day and carrying more than 5,000 passengers per month. But these figures are down more than 35%. We provide transportation of critical cargo in the regions, covering postal, medical, and commercial needs, and we've taken over the Air Canada services in several regions for medical cargo, among other things. And we service medical staff to hospitals in the Magdalen Islands, Gaspé, and Fremont. And we have a very significant reduction in passenger volumes, abandonment of air routes, and implementation of health measures. The whole industry has to reinvent itself. It's going to take time, but status quo is no longer an option. More specifically, for us, COVID-19 has amplified and made more vulnerable regional transportation. It was already a problem before the pandemic, but regional transport is especially deployed to service small communities far from urban centers and more often made up of some 25,000 people or less. But air transport is an economic survival, and regional air transport is therefore characterized by low passenger volumes. So some say that passenger volumes are a direct relationship between ticket prices, but some say that passenger volumes reflect a direct correlation, but some markets really do reflect just the transport of workers, such as the mining sector. So we pay high taxes and duties of all kinds. The transport is only the collecting agent and cumulatively represents some 35 to 40% of price of tickets. Last fall, for instance, Air Canada increased its rates unilaterally by 30%. A number of people make the comparison that a Montreal-Sept-Îles ticket is more expensive than Montreal-Paris ticket, and unfortunately, we're comparing apples and oranges here. On international flights of large aircraft, for example, 3,000 passengers, is configured with first-class seats and business-class seats, which can represent 10% of total capacity. And these seat sales absorb almost the entire cost of a flight, whereas the rest of the seat represents a profit. But in our regional market, we don't have that opportunity. No one will pay for a first-class ticket for a Montreal-Sept-Îles flight. So the risk is huge because the costs are charged just before a flight, regardless of the number of passengers on board. And then there are of course, if different levels of government were to assume these costs, it would certainly reduce the price of tickets. So safety management and compliance with regulations are critical in aviation, but very costly. Safety management is part of a carrier's DNA, and it's not required overnight. So there are many regional destinations that are not considered profitable. Air Canada has withdrawn from certain destinations. For example, Sydney and Gaspé. We need a national carrier like Air Canada. It does need to change its positioning internationally, but we shouldn't fall in the pitfall of having these carriers come into the regions and have unfair competition with regional carriers. We do not consider ourselves competitors with Air Canada. We offer a complementary service. For example, Air Canada will tend to focus on direct flights, whereas PASCAN offers more alternatives of flights with stopovers. That's it. I think I'm out of time.
We're now going to move on to Porter Airlines. Mr. DeLuce, the floor is yours for 5 minutes. Your mute is on, Mr. DeLuce. There you go.
Okay, good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Thank you for the invitation to speak on behalf of Porter Airlines and our 1,500 team members. I will begin by offering a brief overview of Porter's business, which started in 2006 from Billy Bishop Toronto City Airport as part of an effort to revitalize its transportation asset for the city and country. I'm pleased to say that this has been largely successful, with Porter serving some 22 destinations in Canada and the U.S. as of the beginning of 2020, while operating a fleet of 29 made in Canada de Havilland Dash 8 400 aircraft. As a smaller carrier, Porter contributes greatly to competition on the regional routes it serves. Historically, base airfare prices decreased by approximately 60% or more when Porter enters a market, many of those previously having been served by only one airline. This has been true as Porter started service across Ontario, Quebec, and Atlantic Canada, with benefits accruing even to the busiest routes such as Montreal, Toronto, and Ottawa, Toronto. At the outset of the COVID-19 pandemic, Porter determined that it was in the best interest of our team members, passengers, and public health efforts to temporarily suspend operations. While we never imagined at the time that this would be the case, our planes are now grounded today and will be for more than a year before operations restart again. Currently, we are hopeful that some flights can resume in the first half of 2021, subject to the course of the pandemic and evolving travel restrictions. Porter has maintained its temporary service suspension longer than other airlines that made similar decisions. While some carriers had low levels of traffic, allowing them to continue operating certain longer haul flights and maintain minimal levels of service for the country, Porter has been acutely affected because of its regional network, downtown Toronto hub, business traffic focus, and the exposure to U.S. markets. The committee has heard how devastating the pandemic has been for airlines, so I will not repeat this information during my statement. I will only emphasize the trauma that this situation has caused for so many people in the wider travel industry, from those involved with hotels, attractions and restaurants, to travel agencies, airports, and taxi drivers. This, of course, includes approximately 90% of Porter team members on temporary layoff. We want nothing more than an opportunity to begin recalling these workers so that they can contribute to rebuilding our business and the wider economy. In this context, government financial assistance is genuinely welcomed by airlines and other travel businesses, ensuring that airlines like Porter and others that are much smaller are in a position to contribute to economic recovery, sustain regional connections, and provide competition is a benefit to the entire country. At the same time, we understand that assistance is not a blank check. Porter is open to considering conditions being attached to any money made available to airlines by the government, including a more comprehensive approach to passenger refunds. While the government has recently tried to balance the interests of passengers and airlines when it comes to refunds, the strain on everyone has become greater as the pandemic drags on. In Porter's case, we estimate that additional refunds not already provided to our passengers amount to a fraction of 1% of what is outstanding among all airlines in Canada. The timing of governmental assistance potentially becoming available at this stage of the crisis may ultimately prove to be beneficial as a means of boosting service levels and economic growth, just as we hope to see vaccines lead to diminishing restrictions on mobility this spring and summer. Smaller markets stand to benefit most immediately from this, with the possibility of routes being reestablished and competitive alternatives returning. As this develops, we believe that there is also value in expanding the use of rapid testing at airports as part of a coordinated and comprehensive effort to promote safe travel and facilitate reopening of the economy and borders. Porter's overarching interest regarding potential government assistance is that it be considered equitably. It is crucial that smaller airlines not be disadvantaged at the expense of supporting others with larger interests. Thank you for your invitation to speak. I will be pleased to expand on any topic mentioned or otherwise of interest to you during the question period.
Well, Mr. Luce, you get the prize today because you were absolutely bang on 5 minutes. So well done. Well done. I'll now move on to the Downsview Aerospace Innovation and Research, DARE. We have Ms. Samantha Anderton, as well as Andrew Petro. Folks, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. Downsview Aerospace Innovation and Research, also known as DARE, is a consortium of industry and academic partners working in highly collaborative ways to enable cutting-edge R&D, workforce training and education, and entrepreneurial support for startups and SMEs. Together, we are establishing a global aerospace innovation hub for Canada at Downsview Park in Toronto, also the location of production of the Dash 8-400. Aerospace is a key sector for Ontario. More than $500 million of the total $1.4 billion Canada spends on R&D annually is spent in Ontario. And more than 200 aerospace firms are responsible for over 44,000 direct and indirect jobs. We're here today because Canadian aerospace is at a critical juncture. Prior to the devastating impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the Canadian aerospace sector had already fallen from being 5th place in the world to 7th. As you heard last week from the AIAC, significant challenges from the pandemic are threatening to further exacerbate this trend. Canada is currently losing its highly skilled workforce and homegrown expertise in aerospace to other countries around the world who are heavily investing in the sector. With aerospace and aviation companies having to make very tough financial decisions, we are anticipating a decrease in essential research and technology spending. Unfortunately, this can and will stagnate the promising work being led by industry and academic partners to pivot and transform the sector. But we don't have to let this happen.
We believe Canada needs to have a top-down approach to support commercial airlines. This would mean support would flow to original equipment manufacturers, OEMs, and down the full supply chain, including those companies focused on aircraft maintenance. But make no mistake, this is only part of the solution. We also need a bottom-up aerospace framework to foster innovation and collaboration at the SME level. This would spur novel, sustainable technologies in green tech and advanced manufacturing. Supporting a dynamic, collaborative aerospace innovation ecosystem, such as the one we are developing at DARE, would be valuable to all stakeholders. For example, DARE was able to rapidly respond to support COVID-19 research by working on a project to study how to reduce passenger exposure to the virus. By leveraging our access to an extensive expertise pool, as well as our established relationships with industry and academia, we were able to accelerate funding applications and reduce wait times to initiate and advance this key research. That's the power of collaboration. Collaboration also helps SMEs to grow by mobilizing their talent and expertise through facilitating knowledge transfer between smaller enterprises and the larger stakeholders such as Tier 1s and OEMs. SMEs have so much untapped knowledge in key disruptive technologies such as eVTOL, hybrid electric propulsion, and UAVs. We can seize this chance to differentiate ourselves as Canadians if we focus our energy on these novel technologies now. We can also leverage the similarities in the Canadian aerospace sector has with other industries, such as the automotive industry, when it comes to artificial intelligence, machine learning, the Internet of Things, advanced manufacturing, and big data. More incentives have to be created to encourage working together rather than in silos. This will benefit all of Canada. Strengthening investments in R&D now would not only offer long-term benefits, it would also provide the ability to pivot out of the COVID pandemic to emerge a stronger, more resilient aerospace sector. This will have tangible results in all levels of our industry, from airlines to OEMs to SMEs across Canada.
Lastly, we want to
draw
your attention to the short and long-term need to work together to cultivate a highly skilled workforce in aerospace. Organizations such as DARE can support the government in engaging our students starting from the ground up. This is required from elementary school students all the way up to those needing mid-career training through reskilling and upskilling opportunities. Promoting science and technology to help facilitate a wide exposure to STEM opportunities will help grow a valuable culture of innovation. This will facilitate key populations, including marginalized communities, to gain exposure to an industry that offers rewarding, high-quality careers. In closing, if we act now, Canada can protect and support its global leadership in advanced manufacturing, skills training, research, and development. This is about supporting Canadians. It's about the people and securing Canada's position as a global leader in aerospace. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, and well done to both of you. We're now going to move on to our final presentation. Witnesses Mr. Ray Vaughan, President and Chief Executive Officer of NAV Canada, and Mr. Jonathan Begg, Director, Stakeholder and Industry Relations, once again from NAV Canada. Gentlemen, welcome. You have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good afternoon, everyone. I am Raymond Vaughan, President and Chief Executive Officer of NAV Canada. I am joined today by Jonathan Begg, Director, Stakeholder and Industry Relations. I would like to start by thanking the Chair, Vice Chairs, and members of the Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Communities for the opportunity to appear this afternoon. As the country's private, not-for-profit provider of air navigation services, NAV Canada is responsible for the safe and efficient movement of aircraft in all Canadian-controlled airspace. NAV Canada's mandate is achieved primarily through the delivery of air traffic control and flight information services, the maintenance, update, and publishing of aeronautical information products, the reliable provision of communications, navigations, and surveillance infrastructure, and the 24/7 availability of advanced air traffic management systems, many of which we develop right here in Canada and export around the world. We are responsible for more than 18 million square kilometers of airspace from coast to coast to coast and reaching halfway across the North Atlantic, what is usually the busiest oceanic airspace in the world. Thanks to the work of our more than 4,400 dedicated employees operating out of more than 100 operational facilities throughout the country, Canada boasts one of the best air traffic management safety records in the world. It should come as no surprise to members of this committee that NAV Canada has not been immune to the severe impacts that COVID-19 has had on our industry. As traffic levels have declined domestically and globally, so too have our revenues, which are based on service charges paid by our customers, the airlines and aircraft operators who utilize our services. For the first quarter of our current fiscal year, which ran from September to November 2020, weighted charging units, which are a measure that reflects the number of flights, aircraft size, and distance flown in Canadian airspace, decreased by 58.8% compared to the previous year. Our net loss for last fiscal year totaled $348 million. We anticipate a loss of $295 million for the current fiscal year, though I should note that this is based on forecasts made prior to the travel restrictions announced Friday. NAV Canada took action early in the pandemic to significantly reduce operating costs and capital spending while continuing to ensure that essential air navigation services remained available to support our customers and their critical operations. We had to make the difficult decision to increase service charges for our fiscal year 2021 after exhausting all available options. In doing so, we worked to minimize the impact of a rate change by using our debt capacity and our liquidity to support our customers by deferring payment of the increase interest-free over a 5-year period. Like many in the industry, NAV Canada had to make the very difficult decision to reduce the size of its workforce, eliminating more than 720 positions, or 14% of our pre-COVID workforce, through implementation of a voluntary retirement program, followed by involuntary reductions in staffing of temporary and permanent positions, impacting all areas of our business. NAV Canada recently launched numerous aeronautical studies to safely streamline operations at airport locations where we provide air traffic services. While our studies are still underway, it is important to note that any change to our level of service will only be made after careful assessment of all safety factors and following concurrence with our safety regulator, Transport Canada. From the outset of the pandemic, all of our decisions have been made in view of preserving the integrity of the air navigation system and ensuring aircraft safety operations now and well into the future. A consistent theme we have heard from our stakeholders is the desire for cooperation with the federal government on solutions that will not only help the industry weather and recover from the current crisis, but also position the industry to build a pathway to future economic growth. We believe that the federal government is well positioned to take account of this broad and complex situation and deliver a balanced set of supports that can help enable the economic potential of the industry.
1 minute, Mr. Bond.
There is no doubt that the aviation sector will continue to contribute significantly to the fabric of our nation, connecting Canadians to each other and the world, and fueling our economy. At the same time, we must recognize that industry forecasts indicate that a return to 2019 air traffic levels will likely take several years to achieve. Industry and government must work in lockstep now more than ever to take action on future risks and to drive solutions to the current public health and financial crises. In this context, NAV Canada appreciates the opportunity to be part of the dialogue as this committee undertakes its study on the impacts of COVID-19 on the transportation sector. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I welcome questions from members of the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Well done. We're now going to move on to our first round of questions. We have first off the CPC, Ms. Cusi, followed by Liberal Party, Mr. Sidhu, followed by the Bloc, Mr. Barcelona-Duval, followed by the NDP, which Mr. Massey will be taking the floor. 6 minutes each. We'll start off with Ms. Cusi. You have the floor.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'm going to actually start again with presenting the motion that I gave notice of. I think it's very timely, as much as we have these witnesses here today, for whom I'm all very grateful. I met with many of them. Merci au témoin. Je vais ajouter aussi merci.
I also want to thank.
Really is a project critical in the national interest, and as such, I will present this motion here at this time. So as you read, when it was put on motion, the motion itself is that pursuant to Standing Order 1082, the Standing Committee on Transport, Infrastructure and Community Study, the cancellation of the Keystone XL pipeline, that this study focus on A, the devastating loss of jobs and investment across Canada in all sectors that supply the energy sector, B, the environmental impact of the United States purchasing foreign oil from nations with terrible environmental records, and C, the impact the cancellation of this project will have on Canada's economic recovery from COVID-19, that the committee invite relevant witnesses, including representatives of industries and workers affected, as well as Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Minister of Natural Resources, the Minister of International Trade, and the Minister of Environment and Climate Change, that the ministers appear separately for not less than 2 hours each, that these meetings be televised, that 6 meetings be allocated for this study, and that following this study, a report with recommendations be presented to the House of Commons. Chair, I really think, as we think about what this committee is about, it's about transportation, it's about infrastructure, and it's about communities. And I would say that this incredible project, and I will also say that as the former Canadian consul to Dallas, Texas, from 2010 till 2013, I advocated hard for this project in the Obama environment, Mr. Chair. And so with a change in administration to our neighbors to the south, I was hopeful that finally this project's time would come. But unfortunately, the humming and hawing of this government and an eventual change in administration to the south led to its demise, to the result of at least tens of thousands of jobs. 11,000 was the last number I saw, but it's far, far beyond that, tens of thousands if you add everyone implicated. But really, it is about pipelines being forms of transportation, critical infrastructure to our nation, and certainly the communities that not only will be provided with good jobs as a result of this project, but those that the pipeline will service, those that it will bring good Canadian fuel to. And I would add, finally, Chair, that this is more critical this week than ever before as we see the demise of Line 5, again, by the hands of our neighbors to the south. But if only we would have advocated for energy when we had the opportunity. And this is something that this government continues to fail to do. So with all of that, Mr. Chair, thank you for your patience as I present this. I lay this at the feet of the committee with the hope that this committee will recognize the importance of this project, what its cancellation means, and that we can study this as a committee for the benefit of each and every Canadian across this country. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Kusi. I do have questions. Hands up. We have Mr. Biddle, Mr. Rogers, Ms. Jacek. Mr. Biddle, you have the floor.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I'd actually like to start with a point of order. I didn't want to interrupt Ms. Kusi. I do have some comments afterwards, if that's okay, Mr. Chair, but I would like to start with a point of order. Is this within, I guess, and my point of order arises to whether this is even within our mandate as a committee. It seems like a copy and paste from the Natural Resources Committee or the Environment Committee. It doesn't even mention the ministers of transport or infrastructure or even discuss it in any remote way in terms of how this reflects back to transportation. And so that's my first point in terms of whether this is even within our mandate as a committee.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. And I guess, for the lack of a better word, the definition of mandate with respect to this motion, I think it is to some extent. I don't think it's to the full extent. It is more appropriate in other committees, but to some extent it is, as we do touch on infrastructure and communities, and of course, thirdly, transport. So it will be allowed to stand and therefore debated and voted upon. I now have Mr. Biddle. Do you want the floor as well?
Yes, please. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I guess I'd like to express my disappointment, I guess my apologies to the witnesses as well, because I did receive a notice of meeting of the next meeting, and there is committee business scheduled. We have an hour of committee business at the next meeting, and we're using this time to discuss this motion. I'm hoping I'd like to hear from the Bloc and the NDP in terms of how they'd like to proceed. I don't think this is the right committee for this job, and I know the Conservative Party told us that, and we agreed too, and so did the Bloc and the NDP. I don't want to take away anything from them, that a study of the air sector during COVID-19 was the most pressing issue that we could discuss, and so this debate is taking away from that time, and a motion that, again, doesn't mention transportation, does not discuss the issues with respect to transportation and infrastructure. And again, in speaking to my colleagues on natural resources, it's just a copy and paste from that committee. And we've taken one line from natural resources to put standing committee on transport, infrastructure, and community. So I won't go on too much longer. I would like to hear from the Bloc and the NDP in terms of where they'd like to go, and hopefully we can move this forward as quickly as possible and hear from the witnesses, because I would like to hear from them, because it is a pressing issue, the air sector and COVID-19. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Biddle. I'm now going to move on to Mr. Rogers, and I have Mr. Massey, Mr. Barcelona-Duval, and Mr. Bachrach. Mr. Rogers, floor is yours.
Thank you, Chair. Just a very simple comment. Mr. Biddle covered all the key points that I was thinking of. I think, this is not an ideal moment with all these witnesses sitting here waiting for us to be able to ask questions after their presentations. And we do have committee business scheduled for Thursday, so I'm not sure why we're even talking about this today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Mr. Massey.
Mr. Backrod will speak for us. I just want to make sure he's on the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Massey. Mr. Backrack.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I appreciate the reasons that Ms. Kusi wishes to have our committee look at this, but I tend to agree with Mr. Biddle, and I did pull up the mandate of the Transportation Infrastructure and Communities Committee on the House of Commons website, and I don't see very much relevance in there. It speaks specifically to federal programs and policies for air, rail, road, and marine transportation, federal infrastructure funding, such as the Gas Tax Fund and Investing in Canada, planned bilateral agreements, Crown corporations. It doesn't speak to pipelines, and I think that there's probably another committee that would be better suited to investigating these matters. So, with all respect to my colleague, I'll be voting against the motion.
Thank you, Mr. Backrack. I'll now move on to Mr. Barcelou-Duval and Ms. Jazek. You both had your hands up. You now I see them down. No longer want to speak? No?
Oui, quelques secondes là, puisqu'on va interpeller là.
Yes, please, just a few minutes. We would like to just say that it'd be preferable that this topic be addressed in an appropriate committee. I believe it has to do with foreign affairs, given the Americans and their embargo. I think we need to spend the maximum time we can on the issues at hand and the witnesses we have here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barcelou-Duval. Are there any further questions or comments by members? With none, we'll move on to the vote. Mr. Clerk.
All right, the question is on the motion of Ms. Kusi with regard to the Keystone XL. Mr. Biddle.
Opposed.
Monsieur El Khoury.
Contre.
Ms. Jazek.
Opposed.
Mr. Rogers.
Opposed.
Mr. Sidhu.
Opposed.
Mr. Cram.
I vote for.
Ms. Kusi.
In favor.
Mr. Shipley.
In favor.
Mr. Soroka.
In favor.
Monsieur Barcelou-Duval.
Contre.
And Mr. Backrack.
I'm opposed as well.
4 yeas and 7 nays.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Thank you, members. We'll now move on. Ms. Kusi, you have the floor.
Thank you to the chair and thank you to the clerk for allowing that to come forward, and my sincere apologies to the witnesses de les témoins qui sont ici aujourd'hui. All right, I'll go to start with Porter Airlines, please, because I have had very interesting conversations with you before, Mr. Dulce. In that previously, the opinion of your airline, really in my conversations with you, has been different from the other major airlines, and I will include you as a major airline. In that the other airlines were, I would say, advocating perhaps strongly in a sense to have things such as rapid testing, implemented, testing on arrival. And it really seemed as though for several months you have accepted the position of the government as you've seen, as you saw sort of this is just a brief period of time to get through. When really we're seeing now that it's not, it's something that is being extended indefinitely into the future, even beyond the vaccine we're hearing as of this week. And so I'm wondering how your ideas and strategy has changed, given that something which should have been finite with the tools which are available to us and which were available to this government, rapid testing, testing on arrival, vaccines, which are, as we all know, are being so poorly distributed by this government. How has this changed given the complete uncertainty and the uncertainty as to when this will pass in terms of a return to normal for frankly for Canadians in the airline sector as well?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Well, I mean, none of us could have predicted back in March at the point in time when things came to a fairly rapid halt, just how long it would take to play out. And none of us could have imagined that we'd be sitting here today talking about still not being back to any level of normal activity for months and, in fact, years. So there was no way of knowing just what the right approach was. We were supportive of some of the measures that were being taken. We thought, a bit naively, that suspending service till June was prudent. A lot of others only suspended for a few weeks. We thought June, that'll leave time for things to sort out, and we'll remain ready and able. And we are in that position today where we are prepared to come back once the proper health conditions are in place and once those travel restrictions are removed. We've always been a supporter of rapid testing. I think increasingly that is now coming into use more on a pilot project basis in both Calgary and Toronto. It's been proven, as it has been in other jurisdictions, to be an effective way of getting some activity going, and in terms of removing some of those restrictions that in fact do cause some damping of travel in the first place. So I think as vaccine is disseminated and as rapid testing is deployed, that will be very positive, and we support that.
Ms. Cusi?
Thank you, Chair. Ms. Marshall, first of all, I would like to congratulate you on being the only other parent I've ever seen to complete the Lego Death Star with their family. I proudly include myself with you there, so congratulations to that. But I'm wondering,
thanks to
Ms.
COVID,
Marshall,
of course.
Yes, thanks to COVID, exactly. I could go on about the bat
done.
wing and I've got, but it's very impressive indeed. I wanted to talk to you about what we're seeing this week with American Airlines, and I don't mean American Airlines as in the brand, I mean American air carriers still being able to carry Canadians to sun destinations when Canadian carriers have been stopped. The minister actually said voluntarily in question period, which in my opinion is not accurate. I think they were told or given or promised something, as they have been for several months now. We've seen leakage before with Canadians going to, say, Buffalo or Washington, Washington, to get flights overseas. But this is a new level we're seeing here of sort of unfairness and complete disregard of this government's position in regards to Canadian carriers' loss of market share. Can you comment on that, please?
Ms. Marshall?
Start off by saying that COVID has created an incredibly difficult situation as we're all trying to balance our business interests with the need to protect public health. So from that perspective, I can understand why decisions are being made. These aren't decisions that are made by the airport. But of course, transborder traffic is important to our airport. We are a global hub, and we are the fourth or fifth highest point of entry into the United States internationally. So, we have to be mindful that we're going to recover eventually. We need to protect our competitiveness. And so we need to keep our minds open to what routes, albeit protecting public health, but what routes are going to allow us to get back to recovery and be competitive with those U.S. airports.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall, and thank you, Ms. Cusi.
Thank you, Chair.
We're now going to move on to Mr. Sidhu. Mr. Sidhu, you have the floor for 6 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for being with us here with us today. My first question is for Ms. Marshall. You mentioned in 2019 you welcomed 50 million passengers at Pearson Airport and noted the job losses to various industries connected with Pearson Airport. I know this includes many taxi and limo drivers, security, maintenance, and other positions. I've heard from so many in my riding, many are understandably very concerned. However, I'd also like to note that many remain optimistic that things will turn around in due time. Ms. Marshall, how long do you anticipate it will take for demand to recover to pre-pandemic levels once the Canadian population has largely been vaccinated?
Ms. Marshall?
Number one, Bob DeLuce is here, and he's a fantastic spokesperson for the industry. So more questions for Bob. Number two, our industry is saying that it should take as long as 3 to 4 years to recover, to return to 2019 levels. That was our last forecast. But with these additional challenges that have been presented to our sector, it could be longer. We could be looking at 5 to 7 years. So there is no doubt in my mind that the implications are that the recovery is taking longer. Airports and air carriers and other participants in our sector are facing incredible challenges financially, and that the investments we would be making to maintain competitiveness with other global players, we are not able to make right now. We have deferred capital investments at the airport, $245, $265 million in 2020. Those were investments that were being made in projects that were important to growth and expansion that kept Toronto Pearson among the top global hub airports in the world. A global hub airport attracts jobs, it attracts global headquarters, it attracts investment, it attracts tourism. And so don't forget about investing in our future competitiveness. That's what we're asking you. While we keep in mind the need to protect public health, don't let us fall behind.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Mr. Sadhu?
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Mr. DeLuce, to my understanding, pilots need to fly a certain amount of hours per year to maintain their certification. What might be contemplated to keep the skills of your furloughed pilots up to date during this crisis?
Mr. DeLucy?
Well, certainly in the initial stages, it wasn't going to be a problem because we were intending to start on June 1, but as it's gone along, that has become more of a consideration. So it's necessary to probably phase back in flying when it does resume in order to get everyone back up and running. We are maintaining management and some check pilots and training captains in a state of proficiency, and of course we're well structured to bring on others and get them back trained up with simulator and line indoctrination as is required when that event occurs. But there's no point in doing it until you can see your way clear. And now that it requires such a massive training exercise, it's not like you can bring back on 100% of your fleet on day one, even if it did turn. Unlikely to turn in that manner, but even if it was a greater demand all of a sudden, it would take some time to phase in, and we're sort of structured and set for that. I don't think spending money training people until you see light at the end of the tunnel is very useful. Some kind of a minimal flying program with charter work has been useful, but on our part, I think we're doing all the right things. I think just to make sure that we're set, we have the right people to train on simulator and that are ready to do the line indoctrination and whatnot. So I think on our part, we're set to resume pretty rapidly once we have a green light in terms of the pandemic being under control, and of course there being a reduction of travel restrictions, which again will allow people to comfortably start flying again.
Mr. Sadhu?
Thank you for that, Mr. DeLucy. And you mentioned a significant portion of your workforce is furloughed. Roughly how many of your employees are furloughed at home receiving the wage subsidy?
Mr. DeLucy?
About 90% of the 1,500 team members are on temporary layoff, and a good number of, the majority of those would be initially on queues and now reverting to either EI or CERB, whatever is most appropriate and applicable to their particular situation. The 10% who are working are being partially compensated through the existing program and through Porter. They obviously, to the extent that they are working full time, they're being paid full time. Those who, in fact, are back working or are working, continuing and providing the continuity. But that's a rough number. 90% of our workforce is currently on temporary layoff.
Quick question, Mr. Tadu.
Yes, please, if I may, Mr. Chair. Mr. Rogers, what do you think has changed about your industry in a lasting way as a result of the pandemic? Just really quickly, I think I'm running out of time here.
Yeah, what's changed significantly is just the adaptability of the freight forwarders and how they've been able to move cargo in and out of the country. The charter operators and working with the Canadian Airlines and the conversion of passenger flights to cargo flights to move them in and out of the country has been very, very successful overall. The biggest concern we have, though, is the pricing. Previously, because the cargo was moving in the belly holds of passenger aircraft, it was being partially subsidized by the passengers as well. Now that it's moving on all cargo flights, the cargo has to pay itself. And as a result of that, that is having a significant increase in cost overall that basically gets rolled down to the actual consumer.
Thank you. We're now going to move on. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. We're now going to move on to Mr. Barcelou-Duval of the block. Mr. Barcelou-Duval, you got the floor for 6 minutes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you, Chair. My first question will be for NAVCAN. Before unilaterally filing a 30% increase to carriers during the pandemic, you asked the government for some financial assistance. What did the government reply?
So we've had multiple communications with the prior minister and maintain open lines of communications with the deputy minister and the minister's office. Certainly, in those conversations, we continue to look for government aid, which at this point in time, as you're aware, we have not been provided with financial support and are looking to seek financial support from the government going forward, but to date, to no avail.
Merci.
Thank you. With the air carriers that were already in serious difficulty due to the pandemic, do you think there could have been a worse time to experience this 30% increase?
Mr. Bond?
Well, certainly we understand that the rate increase was difficult, but it was a necessary decision. We exhausted all our options prior to increasing service charges, including assessing the CEWS program and achieving significant reductions with respect to capital and operating costs. And so this increase, in fact, could have been much higher prior to the reductions that we imposed and put into place. And unfortunately, we certainly understand and are acutely aware that our customers are facing their own challenges. We worked through to minimize the impact of a rate change as much as possible by using our debt capacity and our liquidity to support our customers. And I will note that in doing so, we're deferring payment of the increase, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, interest-free over a 5-year period.
Merci.
Thank you. On September 22nd, NAVCAN announced it was going to do studies to assess the levels of services required in the towers in Quebec, Saint-Jean, and Natashquan, and Lanceville, and Rwanda is even threatened with closure. Now, what we're hearing is that NAVCAN's will is not to examine the levels of service required, but to close down services. Even before studies were done, controllers for all of the towers where these studies are ongoing have been let go. My question for you is, first, why did you shortcut your own processes before even getting ministerial direction?
So I certainly thank you for your question. There's a number of points that I would like to clarify. Certainly, our level of service studies or aeronautical studies have not yet been determined. It's a process that evaluates if alternate services levels are appropriate. We will be making recommendations following our stakeholder consultations that we believe are thorough. They're safety focused, and as I said, no recommendations have been made to date. You bring up the point that letters of layoff were issued to air traffic controllers. I want to clarify that as well. These letters were letters of vulnerability, which indicated that their jobs potentially could be at risk depending on the outcome of these studies. But in no way have these individuals been laid off at this point in time. They are still very much attached to a paycheck. They still very much continue to do the hard work that they've been doing within the communities that you mentioned and beyond, and will continue to do so until such time as the aeronautical studies are completed and submitted to Transport Canada. And so I just wanted to make sure that the committee was fully aware that these employees were declared vulnerable and have not been laid off.
Mr. Bartholomew.
Merci. Vous comprendrez que de mon côté.
Thank you. But I do find that rather odd. We're telling us that the controllers know there is intention to lay them off, yet they have to continue to do their job, knowing full well they're going to lose their jobs in a few months. But the decision is not taken yet. They'll be laid off, and all of the towers would be closed down in Quebec, and we're very concerned. Now, you increase your rates by 30%. You do shut down jobs. Now, you have earmarked millions of dollars in bonuses to your senior management. Can you tell us what has been paid out in the last year?
Sure. So first, I will comment again on these letters. These notice letters are required by conventions of the collective agreement. And once the letters are issued, trigger certain rights, in fact, that employees have within that agreement. That includes giving them access to other positions at other locations in the event that the aeronautical study were to change the level of service and they would be impacted. With respect to management bonuses, I want to put this into the broader context, and I think it's important for the committee to understand that management, in fact, has been reduced by 20%. So we're 20% fewer managers than prior to the pandemic. But in addition to receiving these reduced bonuses that you refer to, and I do want to highlight that they have been significantly reduced from prior years. This is following management salary reductions and significant changes to the management pension plan on a go-forward basis. So management employees have been significantly impacted with respect to their numbers and have also been impacted in terms of their total compensation package in a fairly significant way.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Thank you, Mr. Bartholomew. We're now going to move on to the NDP. Mr. Massey, you have the floor for 6 minutes. And by the way, Brian, great to have you out today.
Great.
Always a pleasure. Brian, the floor is all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And my first question, I know you'll have some interest because it involves the Cleveland airspace and the Windsor Tower being under study. Mr. Bond, have you contacted, and when did that take place, the FAA with regards to our U.S. shared space with Detroit and the Cleveland airspace, that center space that we occupy together?
Mr. Bond?
I'm going to ask my colleague to respond to that question in that he has been directly involved in this initiative.
Mr. Begg?
Yes, Mr. Massey, I can confirm that we've had multiple exchanges with the FAA. We have some meetings planned. So we have been engaging with the FAA from a number of locations, Cleveland, Detroit, as well as their international coordination office. So we are engaging with the FAA actively.
Will that information be made public?
The information, so in the conduct of an aeronautical study, we do have to assess all the issues that are raised, and certainly we are well aware that you're
I just want
referring
to know if it's going to be made public or not.
the
Your
assessment.
correspondence with the FAA.
The assessment of the issues will be included in our submission to Transport Canada.
Okay, so no, just your assessment of the information. We'll have to do an ATIP for that if we want, I suppose, and I can do that with my American colleagues, I suppose, on the U.S. side. Now, there was 2 previous studies to that, and they proved that the airspace was too dangerous to remove supports from the control tower. What do you think is different since that traffic has tripled? Also become more complicated with the U.S. military also using the airspace as well too.
So the last completed study for Windsor was in 1998, more than 2 decades ago. That's quite a while ago. There's certainly some things that are similar. The fact that there's complex airspace in the vicinity, but we've also seen things change. The tools that our staff use, certainly the prevalence of GNSS navigation and GPS availability. So we are taking a good look at seeing, is there a possibility of a change in service? No determination has been made, but we will be taking into account all the related factors.
Okay, so in the testimony by Mr. Bond, you've eliminated 720 positions. Does that have any impact whatsoever on your study? When those positions were eliminated, obviously that affected your organization. So how does this affect the studies that are taking place and your capabilities to evaluate things in the current context, especially since you've asked for government support to maintain your staffing component, but was denied that by the government? So how does that affect the studies?
Mr. Begg?
We've maintained our full capability to undertake the studies. The level of service team, as it's called, has a very broad base of knowledge, including folks with backgrounds in air traffic control, flight operations, aeronautical information management. So we have the full capability to conduct a thorough quality study that will be vetted by Transport Canada as well.
Okay, so to Mr. Bond, with regards to the current staffing levels, now you're right, you actually can issue the letters if you wanted to, which you did exercise. It's not a gift to the employees to exercise that. That could be done later on. It's to jettison them quicker rather than later if you want to. But there was already a shortage in Canada for air traffic controllers, and keeping them in Canada will be a challenge. What's the plan with regards to, and was there actually a shortage prior to the situation? I'm worried about a brain drain, so to speak, from controllers losing confidence in having a job in Canada for the long term.
Mr. Ron?
Yeah, so certainly before the pandemic, our staffing levels were at 98%, 98% of requirement. That being said, certainly that differs from one site to another. So there are some sites that were short-staffed prior to the pandemic. As we plan not only our level of service, but any other reductions within the workforce on the operational side, we look well, through the recovery at what we anticipate traffic will look like beyond to ensure that we will have adequate staffing to provide the service that the Canadians and our customers have grown accustomed to. This is extremely important. I think it's very important to make the point that we are not looking at numbers related to COVID traffic, but rather making our plans around where we anticipate traffic will be well into the future. And as you've heard earlier,
just real quick, Mr. Bond, sorry, and Bond, I know I'm running out of time. But for the record, though, I think it's important for leadership. Did you receive a bonus with regards to what's taken place with the $7 million? Were you part of the management system that received a bonus during this time?
I did receive a bonus. There was no corporate bonus for executives from March 1st, the date of the pandemic, for the balance of the fiscal year. The amounts payable were with respect to the pre-pandemic period.
Do you not agree that it might be difficult for some to accept that there were $7 million of bonuses to hundreds of managers at a time when people are losing their jobs and their livelihoods? Does that not worry you about the message that says to the rest of Canada?
So any decision that we've made with respect to workforce adjustment were difficult decisions, undoubtedly. But as I mentioned earlier, all management have received significant reductions to not only their pay, but also their pension as a result.
Well, they still have a job and other people don't. And I think that's one of the challenges. I think when the government looks to support, NAV Canada, if there's a decision, wouldn't you think that maybe bonuses shouldn't be part of that? Would you guarantee or commit today that if there is going to be support from the federal government, that none of that money will go to bonuses?
We will look at our compensation policies and ensure that we make appropriate decisions in order to retain and attract people to the organization and to do what is best in the context.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Thank you, Mr. Massey.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
We're now going to move on to the second round. We have first up Mr. Shipley of the Conservative Party for 5 minutes, Mr. Jazik for the Liberal Party for 5 minutes, Mr. Barcelou-Duval from the Bloc for 2.5 minutes, and Mr. I'm not sure. I'm assuming it's Mr. Massey again for 2.5 minutes. Mr. Shipley, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for appearing today. Your time is much appreciated. My first question is going to be for Ms. Marshall. Ms. Marshall, you mentioned that Pearson is down about 85%. I'm hoping that I can get some more information. Does your group organization have any access to other large airports outside of Canada, meaning perhaps in London, New York, or LA, what their percentage of passengers are down? I'm just trying to get a comparison as to what's going on in the world as compared to what's going on in Canada or here local at Pearson.
Yeah, I can speak to some of the travel impacts we've seen in other jurisdictions. I mean, it is very fluid, right? As countries introduce different travel restrictions. But for example, we do know that some airports in the United States, some key hubs, they were only down as much as 50 to 70%. So we do know that in other jurisdictions, there has been a greater propensity to travel. However, we are down significantly. You know, we spent the first period of time down more than 90% year over year in certain months. And so, you know, it continues to be a significant challenge for us to get a footing. And as we deal with ongoing travel restrictions and changes in screening requirements, we're going to continue to see changes and impacts to our passenger numbers. Just looking at my colleague Ian in case he has any additional information he wants to.
Yes, we've, you know, we're still hurting greater than 85%. And, you know, this year we're probably forecasting lower passenger volumes than 2020. So, in an age where we're not getting government rent relief or the waiver, it doesn't make sense when we're going to be worse off than 2020.
Mr. Shipley.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for that answer. So that's interesting to hear. So we're looking at, we'll use Pearson, that's where you are, 85 to 90% down, perhaps even more this year. You're seeing some other regions are only down 50%, which obviously being down any is detrimental to the industry and it's going to create job loss. What would you say the number one factor is as to why we're down so much more? Is it because of a lack of rapid testing? Is it because of a lack of tougher rules in other jurisdictions? Would you put it down as to one or two main reasons for that differential? Ms. Marshall? Or sorry, Mr. Clark?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, no, the conservative nature of Canadians, we've heard the flight shaming, the regulatory changes are confusing to a lot of passengers. I'm sorry, I'm getting a reverb. I apologize. But it is challenging. And what we have to do is rebuild the passenger confidence and say that they're going to be safe and they're assured that they can get back into the country. So we're battling on a number of uphill challenges, as well as the health of our airports and the economy, as well as the airlines. And so we're in for a long road. We need to work with government to come up with solutions that can rebuild this business together with thinking about innovation and investments in the right areas to get back the passenger.
And thank you for that. Sorry, Chair. Thank you. I'm shocked today at earlier what was mentioned. We're all hopeful this comes to an end as soon than possible. We need to get our economy back rolling. We need to get people back working. But earlier, it was stated that these implications could last for 3 to 4 years, and then it was actually changed to perhaps 5 to 7 years, which is obviously a long ways out. In your industry, which creates a tremendous amount of jobs right across the country. We need to get that turnaround as quick as we can. So 5 to 7 years is just unbelievable. Perhaps you could tell me, Mr. Clark or Miss Marshall, with the new rules that are being put out now for international travelers, how involved is Pearson with helping set up those rules, and how much information do you have so far? I'm getting people calling our office daily. We're only 45 minutes up the road from Pearson. Are you aware yet of what's going to happen when someone comes back from international? Are the hotels been picked? Are they going to have any choice in anything? Are you involved yet in any of these choices? And one of the questions I was asked by a resident who is currently away, this may seem frivolous, but it's a small thing. It's important to them. They're away right now with their 2 dogs, and they said when they come back, if they have to quarantine in a hotel for 3 days, will it be a hotel they can take their dogs with? They're part of their family. How much planning has gone into it so far, and are you prepared for these new regulations?
Mr. Clark.
Be happy to take that on.
Ms. Marshall.
I guess I'd start by saying that, if you go back to your question about the impacts on passenger numbers, passenger confidence and passenger confusion contributes to lower passenger numbers. And that's not to say that it's not important for all Canadians to respect our efforts to battle COVID. We believe they should, and we believe that testing measures, a clear, consistent approach to a testing framework, which we've called on for many, many months now, together with the air carriers and others in the industry. For at least the better part of 8 or 9 months, we've been asking for a clear approach to testing frameworks that will provide passengers more confidence, a better understanding of how and when they can travel safely, and will eventually allow for a reopening of safe travel. It's got to be part of the go forward strategy. These are not measures that the airports decide upon. However, we do partner and lead in research. So we led the way on research of aviation and the impacts of air travel in relation to transmission of COVID. We partnered on that with McMaster Health Labs. We've partnered with the province of Ontario on the arrivals testing pilot program. We're about to launch a departures testing program, voluntary with the National Research Council for both passengers as well as airport workers. So airports and air carriers are doing, well, particularly airports, doing everything they can to help lead the way towards a clear approach to testing, both on departures and arrival, and just want to partner with government at the federal level to establish a clear framework going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Marshall. Thank you, Mr. Shipley. We're now going to move on to Ms. Jacek for the Liberal Party. Ms. Jacek, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all our witnesses. You've demonstrated yet again how complex the aviation sector really is. My first question is for Monsieur Gagnon. We have heard a number of interesting suggestions through the course of the study, and I was intrigued by one that came to us from Air North. They were suggesting that it might be a good idea to re-regulate the sector on a temporary basis in a way to get through the crisis. And in their case, they were saying that by keeping other carriers out of the Yukon, they in fact could survive without needing any additional subsidies. So in other words, they were suggesting a regional monopoly for certain companies in order to guarantee a more predictable level of revenue. And of course, that would limit competitive pressure, but that they in fact could survive. I was wondering if you have any thoughts on this subject.
Well, thank you for your question. I will yield the floor to my colleague, Mr. Roberts, on this matter. Thank you.
Mr. Roberts.
Oh, here we go. Thank you for the question.
It'll all depend on the demographic of regional aviation and operators and where we're flying in Canada. If you take PASCAN, for example, we fly in Eastern Canada and Quebec. We fly 10 different regions in Quebec and Labrador. Usually at any given time, we're about 6 regional operators that operate in Quebec. It's highly, highly competitive. People don't seem to think that it's really competitive here, but it really is. The fact that a province or a territory, sorry, could go down to just one competitor, there's definitely a way to make your case for survival. Just to give you an example, Air Canada pulled out of certain regions in Quebec this summer, and we're a small company. We're an operator. We had 150 employees. We love this business. We've built it from the ground up. Really passionate about what we do. And when we saw Air Canada pull out, even in a pandemic, we were able to turn a profit. For us, it was amazing. So, is the idea crazy? I don't think it's crazy at all. It's totally possible, but it depends, then in British Columbia, Pacific Coastal or Central Mountain Air, how are they going to feel? And then in Manitoba, you've got Transwest, Westwind, Calm Air, you've got Summit, Air in the East, or you've got PASCAN, Air Liaison, Provincial Airlines, Air Canada Jazz, and the list just goes on and on and on, right? So, like today, we're all fighting for our lives. Honestly, it is terrible, and it's really hard for me to be on this call today. I'll tell you for what I'm hearing. Like all of my employees are cut. Nobody's got a raise. Nobody's got a bonus. Nobody's got nothing. We've been fighting this thing out. We're shipping like essential goods to regions, medicine, antibiotics, food. I'm just losing my I'm sorry, guys, to get a little bit pumped up here, but it's really difficult. We're in this position today. None of us expected it. Yanni and I, we bought this company. We're totally passionate. We believe in aviation. We thought that we could help the regional communities in the province of Quebec and Eastern Canada, and that we have. And we've been fortunate that the Quebec government is there. They've labeled us an essential operator. So we have had some help from the provincial government in Quebec. Thank God for that. If it wasn't for that, all of the carriers in Quebec, I think, would have been pretty much done and over with today. So, if you got the opportunity to be alone, hallelujah, lucky on you. You'll definitely make a go at it. If you're in a competitive market like we are, and in some other place like Mr. Duluth, obviously has lots and lots of competition. It's not easy for a company like Porter. He came up as an underdog as well. I don't know if I answered your question, but
yes, I think you certainly have also pointed out the complexity of differences across the country as well. Obviously, we have a huge country and there's so many factors to think about. And we do understand your frustration and the anxiety of all the employees because of everything that we've heard. But trying to be a little bit more positive, I was wondering perhaps, Ms. Marshall, obviously, you're sort of down to a bare bones existence at the GTAA. Is there some opportunity to sort of rethink business models at the airport? As you do recover, and we know you will, are there some opportunities to rethink how you conduct your business at the airport?
Thanks very much for your question. We have a new CEO at Toronto Pearson. Some of you have had the opportunity to meet with Deborah Flint. She came to us from LAX, and Deborah never stops thinking about how we can pivot and innovate towards a better future and how our industry needs to change. And one of the things that, she wanted to look at and understand better as someone coming into the Canadian airport sector is what some of the underlying frameworks are for our governance model, including some aspects of ground leases at airports. One of the challenges, and I'm sure Ian will speak to this, is the need to return airports such as Pearson back to the government with no debt and in best world-class conditions. That's a challenge. Secondly, we have a requirement to pay 12% of our gross revenues to the government in the form of ground rent each year. And, if I look back to 2019, that was about $170 million. So, that creates some challenges in terms of our flexibility to be as innovative as we want in new revenue generation opportunities. But that hasn't stopped us from trying to do that. And I'll turn it over to Ian to give you some perspective on how his team, the commercial team and the strategy team, are thinking about new approaches to commercial opportunities.
Mr. Clark, you're going to have to take some time from a future question to answer that.
Oh,
As
come on.
Ms. Marshall, I'm sorry, Ms. Jasek's time is up. We'll now move on to Mr. Barcelou-Duval. Mr. Barcelou-Duval, you got the floor for 2.5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président. Ma question va...
Thank you very much. My question will be for Mr. Gagnon. Your colleague, Mr. Robert, said that Pascan is still alive today, along with the other regional carriers in Quebec, thanks to Government of Quebec assistance. We've often deplored the lack of assistance from the federal government, but thankfully in Quebec, assistance has been afforded. Now, there is also preparation for assistance to the large carriers. Federal government has said it'll depend on two conditions. One, the refunding of air tickets, and second, the return of those big carriers in the regions. So a carrier such as yours, a regional carrier, how would you react? Thanks to federal government, Air Canada would get financial assistance to deploy in the regions, and what would be the impact on the regional services you provide? Because Air Canada does not cover all of the destinations in Eastern Quebec. Thank you for your question. Listen, to subsidize Air Canada or any large other carriers to come and compete in regional markets makes no sense, absolutely no sense. First, they're forcing Air Canada and other big carriers to refund people's air tickets. But we're talking about giving them money to go back in the regions when the actual regional carriers who are already there, such as Pascan, but there are others, actually took over the baton and did provide the services. The reason the large carriers, such as Air Canada, are so largely invested in regional transport is they're going to get some 34% of that for interprovincial stopovers or international stopovers. So in Quebec City Airport, we can do scheduled flights to international airports like Montreal. We don't do it now because there's no volume, no demand, but there's nothing to prevent us from offering these connections and give passengers the potential for connecting internationally. If the federal government is preparing to subsidize the large carriers for these regional connections, there's going to be even more impact on the regional carriers. Thank you, Mr. Gagnon.
To Mr. Bachrach. Mr. Bachrach, you have the floor for 2.5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of our witnesses for their presentations today. My first question is for Mr. Bond, picking up where some of my colleagues left off. The pandemic has obviously resulted in a huge drop in revenue for NAV Canada. And we've talked a little bit about your conversations with the government, but I don't think we've heard the magnitude of financial assistance that would allow NAV Canada to avoid the cuts that are being looked at currently. Could you speak to, and we have heard from the union that represents workers at NAV Canada on this topic, but could you speak to the kind of financial support that would be required to avoid these cuts that are being proposed?
Mr. Bond?
So first off, I want to briefly mention that in terms of the level of service initiatives that we're currently looking at, we would continue to look at those level of service initiatives regardless of government support. This is part of our normal process to look at what is appropriate in the context. We've looked at the traffic levels prior to the pandemic, looked at what they will be through the recovery and beyond, and want to establish the appropriate levels of service. And so we would continue irrespective of any financial assistance from the government with respect to those aeronautical studies. I also will point out, though, in answer to your question, that it really depends on how long the public health crisis, will continue. But as I mentioned in my opening remarks, between last fiscal year and our current fiscal year, we are about $650 million short, and that doesn't include what we anticipate will be a further erosion in the short term of air travel, and certainly pushes out the recovery beyond when we would have anticipated it would be.
Mr. Bachrach.
Thanks, Mr. Bond. My other question is around the criteria that NAV Canada has used to select the towers that are currently under review, towers like Gander and Windsor. These represent significantly busy and strategically important airspaces. Could you speak to the criteria by which NAV Canada created the list of locations to be reviewed?
Mr. Bond.
Sure. So our policy on the delivery of air navigation services provides us guidance on what services are typically provided based on traffic levels. We continuously monitor these traffic levels and work with regional management to determine whether or not a study should be undertaken, but predominantly, as I said, based on traffic levels. And I want to point out again, these traffic levels are not, COVID traffic levels, but rather what we were seeing leading into the pandemic.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Thank you, Mr. Bachrach. We're now going to move on to Mr. Soroka. Mr. Soroka, you get the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for coming today. My first question is for Ms. Anderton and Mr. Petro. Now, your business is closely tied to the success of the aviation industry as a whole. My question is, for months now, the Liberals have promised to plan and help the aviation sector, and nothing has come up forward. How confident are you that their plan will help the industry get back on track?
Mr. Soroka, who is that question for?
It's either to Ms. Anderton or Mr. Petro, which.
Ms. Anderton?
I'm going to let my colleague, Mr. Petro, take over that.
Mr. Petro.
At this point, we are focusing our efforts with the current government on our research initiatives and our immediate reskilling, and pushing for that funding to come forward and to be activated at a quick rate. We are hoping that it is successful. We are getting uptake, but again, time will tell how successful that will be.
Thank you, Mr. Petro. Mr. Soroka.
Okay, to Mr. DeLuce, that's quite an interesting concept you guys have been doing for the last number of months, being completely shut down. Are you concerned about having staff coming back or retaining staff?
Mr. DeLuce.
I think that's always a concern with any company that is in an extended period of suspension. But we have been focusing a lot of attention on our team members and their health and well-being and their suitability for coming back and resuming service at the appropriate time is really of utmost importance to us. We think we have a fairly supportive group. They have been very instrumental in us being as successful as we have been to date, and we will depend on them greatly once we're in a position to resume service. So I think we're doing all the right things, but we are somewhat constrained in our ability to do so because our revenue stream today is basically near zero, and the expense levels obviously continue, even though we've scaled them back somewhat.
Mr. Soroka.
Again to Mr. DeLuce, because of what you've been doing and still the main airlines have been competing, and you're in a very highly competitive market, how do you think you're going to be able to compete with the big companies coming out of this pandemic?
Mr. DeLuce.
Well, we competed with them prior to the pandemic against fairly significant odds. We made the decision back in March to suspend service, to take care of our team members, to do the best we could to support the health initiatives that were launched to fight the virus. What we've done in the meantime as well is to remain ready in terms of aircraft being refurbished and a certain number of team members being ready. We've painted airplanes. We've revised and refined many of our things. We've used the period as constructively as we could to make sure that when the time was right, that we could launch forward on a good solid footing with the intention of being as fully back into service as possible in the shortest period of time.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I still have some time.
You do.
Okay.
1 minute. 1 minute.
Mr. Rogers, then, with your freight, you had said about half the freight isn't coming into the country anymore, and the prices have gone up substantially. How much longer do you think that can be sustainable because of the high cost, or is it people need it and they're still going to just keep paying for it?
Mr. Rogers?
Yeah, just to clarify, 50% of the cargo moved in the belly hold of passenger aircraft. Once the passenger aircraft went down to significant degrees, people reverted to charter aircraft. So freight is still moving, cargo is still moving. It's moving in charter aircraft right now at significantly higher prices, as I mentioned. So that will continue for the emergency parts. We've seen a significant portion of e-commerce go off the air and into ocean and moving over the marine sector versus aviation. So that is a significant change that has occurred over this period of time. But emergency parts and products and services will continue to fly in the air through the charter aircraft if belly capacity is unavailable.
Thank you, Mr. Rogers. Thank you, Mr. Soroka. We'll now move on to Mr. Rogers. Mr. Rogers, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you to all of the witnesses that are with us today and all the information that you've provided about the challenges that you're facing. First question is to NAV Canada. Gander, being in the center of the international flights, of course, in Eastern Canada, the crown jewel of NAV Canada when in 9/11, when they landed all of these aircraft at Gander. The town is wondering about, and people are wondering about the long-term plans for the Gander operations, given that there's been some reference to proposed layoffs because of financial challenges. People are concerned about jobs, of course, and when, after the pandemic is done, hopefully in the not too distant future, whether or not these people would be recalled and the experience they have and brought back to the Air Navigation Center in Gander. So
Mr.
for
Bond.
NAV Canada, yeah.
So we certainly understand the importance of good jobs in small communities like Gander and the role that NAV Canada plays in the local economy. I want to highlight that the changes to our workforce in Gander were only made after careful consideration of the operational requirements, both currently, but more importantly, in the future. We continue to assess our requirements as we move forward, both positively and negatively. And certainly, if traffic rebounds at a greater rate than we're anticipating, we will be most interested in continuing employment with our employees at Gander. I think it's fair to say that they've made a significant contribution to the organization. We're hoping that things will improve beyond our estimates, but to date, all of our work has been done based on where we expect traffic to go in the future.
Mr. Rogers.
Thank you so much. To Mr. DeLuce and I guess Mr. Roberts probably, or yeah, okay. I'm talking about a question around restoring regional routes. And just a couple quick questions. What will it take to restore lost connectivity after the pandemic, from your perspective? And how feasible do you think it will be to restore all regional routes we lost after the pandemic subsides? And what kind of timelines do we envision for that to happen?
We'll start off with Mr. DeLuce, and then we'll go to Mr. Roberts.
Well, I think we've always viewed the regional routes and the smaller communities as being the ones that really are most vulnerable in a situation like this because of the thinner traffic. And we also believe that they deserve and need, the airlines deserve and need a level of support that would allow them to ensure that there's some resumption of service as quickly as possible to those regional destinations. And that's certainly our position. And it's why I think the moves to look more specifically at an industry-specific support mechanism is so important. And I think the fact that it is now looks like it's playing out in some form, I think, working together, there is every opportunity for communities and airports and airlines and government to focus in on how best to resume service in some of the smaller regional communities that so much require that service.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuce. Mr. Roberts, do you want to comment?
Yeah, I think the regional markets, we've got a good opportunity to rebuild the regional markets pretty quickly. The way we've done it, we've really diversified our business by not just offering passenger service, but, we add cargo into our aircraft. We had other types of services. We do contracts with hospitals, with mining companies, support to fly in and fly out. So markets in Quebec, Eastern Canada. Last summer, we were in the middle of a pandemic. There was the Atlantic bubble. There was a bit of a bubble here in Quebec. We saw an enormous increase in local tourism. I think if we had some initiatives that we could put behind local tourism to push people out to the regions, we always put a lot of dependency on the regions. Well, the regions are small, they're this, they're that. But, I'm from a small region, 300 population. And, we need to center a little bit more on the bigger populations, bringing them to see our Canadian beauties. Stephenville, Deer Lake, Sydney, Charlottetown, Gaspé, Les Îles de la Madeleine. These places are phenomenal. Sept-Îles, Port-Cartier. If we could develop some tourism incentives to bring people from the bigger city centers to the regions and turn the problem around a bit. The traffic is just one way and we're putting it all on the people in the regions. Let's use some of the population push that we got.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts, and thank you, Mr. Rogers. We're now going to move on to for 5 minutes to Mr. Cram. Mr. Cram, you have the floor once again for 5 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. And my questions are for the witnesses from NAV Canada concerning the closure of air traffic control towers. Last Thursday, Doug Best testified at the committee. He is the president and CEO of the Canadian Air Traffic Controllers Association. And he said, quote, NAV Canada management received bonuses in December worth approximately $7 million, and unionized members got layoff notices, unquote. So could the witnesses from NAV Canada explain if the federal government gave NAV Canada a $7 million grant tomorrow, how many air traffic control towers on your closure list could have been kept open?
Bon?
So I just want to highlight again that management employees, I think, were the hardest hit in terms of our workforce adjustment, and definitely in terms of their compensation, both from a salary perspective and as I mentioned earlier, a pension perspective. In terms of how many air traffic controllers we would, how many facilities we would keep open based on any government grant, that we would have to evaluate. Again, we're looking at transforming an industry and therefore having to transform the services that we offer based not on what we see today, but what we anticipate we're going to see well into the future. And that's how our decisions will be made.
Mr. Cram? Okay, so when I talk with representatives from the Regina Airport Authority, the last thing on their mind is NAV Canada bonuses. What's at the top of their mind is public safety, future growth after the pandemic is over, and keeping the lights on in the meantime. So how does NAV Canada plan to ramp up to pre-pandemic levels if 7 of its air traffic control towers have been closed down?
Mr. Bond.
So the decisions that we're making with respect to air traffic control towers are based on air traffic that we saw prior to the pandemic, and that we will see. We anticipate that we will see post-pandemic, and so those changes are not being made based on where we're at today in terms of air traffic levels, and so we will continue to provide the appropriate level of service.
We're done in about 10 minutes.
And the appropriate level of service, always keeping safety at the forefront and in mind of all the decisions that we make.
So before the pandemic in 2019, were air traffic controllers regularly required to work overtime?
Mr. Bond.
Yes, air traffic controllers would have worked overtime, or many of them would have worked overtime. Overtime is used as a way to balance supply and demand with respect to our services, given that we're a 24/7 operation. We have used overtime to deal with staff shortages in some locations, but even in locations where we're fully staffed, we will use overtime to balance that supply and demand.
Mr. Cramp.
And so if NAV Canada was having its controllers work overtime before the pandemic, are these levels of overtime sustainable post-pandemic, or is NAV Canada just expecting dramatically reduced levels of air travel for the foreseeable future?
Well, we are certainly expecting to see significant reductions in air travel in the foreseeable future, but all our plans, including looking at what would be the optimal mix of overtime and regular pay, is factored into how we determine our staffing levels going forward to ensure that we have an extremely safe operation, as we have delivered historically to the Canadian public and to our customers. None of that will change, but the environment has changed, and we have to respond to that environment and ensure that we're providing the appropriate level of service based on where we expect demand to be.
Mr. Cram.
And I believe in your opening statement, you said it would take 6 to 7 years for air travel to return to pre-pandemic levels. Can I ask what modeling you used to come to that conclusion?
So I believe that was Ms. Marshall that had made that comment about 6 to 7 years. But I will say that our current forecast, although we're reviewing it in light of recent government announcements, is that we would not see traffic return to 2019 levels until 2023-24, but that is likely to be pushed out, similar to what Ms. Marshall said earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Bond. Thank you, Mr. Graham. We're now going to move on to Mr. Alcuri. Mr. Alcuri, you have the floor for 5 minutes. You're on mute, Mr. Alcuri.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, et bienvenue à...
Thank you very much, Chair, and welcome to our guests. My first question is addressed to Mr. Deluche. We have heard about travel agencies that have lost their commissions. These are very small businesses that cannot survive without these commissions. What can you say about their lot?
Mr. Alcuri, who are you directing that question to?
I said before to Monsieur Deluce, s'il vous plaît.
Deluce, Mr. Deluce, floor is yours.
Yeah, I thought it was perhaps directed to me, and I appreciate the question. Certainly, it's something that's under discussion and consideration. I think that the normal practice has been that when refunds are given, agencies, in fact, relinquish their associated commissions. But it's also really very much recognized that that those agencies have probably had to do a lot of extra work during this last number of months, most of which was not compensated for, and that was all in an effort to handle and deal with innumerable changes and alterations to the ever-changing sort of environment that airlines and airports and passengers found themselves in. So, it's one of those things where I think everyone is suffering. That includes airports. It includes NAV Canada. It includes airlines. It certainly includes travel agencies and hotels and others. I think our own view, though, is that some consideration needs to be given to the agencies that have worked so diligently to keep things moving and adjusted while passengers were subjected to numerous alterations to their flight schedule. So I can't speak for or make any decisions there, but I certainly feel for them and appreciate the predicament they're in.
Mr. Alkari?
Yes. Encore à Monsieur Deleuze.
Yes, another question for Mr. Deleuze. We know that the federal government imposed conditions that tie in with a number of issues before providing any financial assistance. For instance, refunding customers whose flights have been canceled, and second, protect regional routes and connectivity, and three, honor the contracts with aerospatial Canadian businesses, and the commission and pay commissions for travel agencies has also become an issue. Can you tell us which of these issues are the most problematic for air carriers? Can you elaborate, please? Thank you.
Mr. Deleuze?
Well, it's a complex question. I mean, and I'm not sure I fully understand what the question is, but I can tell you that in our particular instance, particularly as it relates to refunds, we've taken our guidance largely from CTA. At the same time, we've gone above and beyond that guidance in certain circumstances where we examined the particular situation and we felt that there was a particular strain or situation that required more consideration for the particular passenger situation. So that, in many instances, did result in going far beyond what the guidelines said. The other thing I would say in our particular situation is that we're not long haul, so our fares aren't high. We're competitive. Generally, we have a very small percentage, much less than 1% of the total outstanding refunds that will eventually have to flow back to customers, either by way of credit shows that are used or otherwise refunded. But our amount, the amount that we're looking at, it's significant. I think whatever happens, it all has to be sort of looked at in the context of, what level of compensation, what level of assistance, I guess is a better word, for a restart and a healthy restart that is there in that package, and how that fits in terms of dealing with the refunds that I think properly need to go back and be used by passengers at some point in time.
Thank you, Mr. Deleuze.
I'm not sure that I hit your question.
Not very clear.
I didn't get the full translation.
Thank you, Mr. Deleuze, and thank you, Mr. Alkari. We're now going to move on to Mr. Barcelou-Deval. Mr. Barcelou-Deval, you have the floor for 2.5 minutes.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Thank you very much, Chair. I would like to address this to Mr. Gagnon. The fact is the federal government has announced that it is going to be putting in place a potential financial aid program for the aviation industry. And in parallel to that, there's the Quebec government that is working with the UMQ and other advisor groups to put in place their own policies in terms of regional air transport in Quebec. Do you think that before seeing a new federal policy, it'd be important that they learn about what Quebec does and try to harmonize with it? Thank you for that question. There seems to be lots of stakeholders with their finger in the pie. The danger that lurks is having counterproductive policy. So it is important that people speak with each other and that people have the right understanding of what the problem is. It's also very important that all stakeholders be heard. I've been hearing from the beginning of the different statements that federal government is leaning towards a financial assistance program for carriers. But we were not part of those discussions. We have talked to different people at different level of governments, but more to make known the viewpoints of the regional carriers and the role, for instance, that PASCAN could play, not just in Quebec, but outside of Quebec, because we are interested in other markets, for instance, the Maritimes or even regional markets in Ontario. But we've not been surveyed as to the relevance of such an initiative or initiatives. So if people in government want our opinion on that, it'll be our pleasure to participate. We'd also like to know, with regard to everything that was discussed about NAVCAN and increase in rates and paying out bonuses, as a carrier, you pay for all these operations. You're living with this situation. Listen, I'm not pointing the finger at NAVCAN. I would say, though, that overall, it's the same old trend. All stakeholders give, or charge rate increases every year, thinking that carriers are going to be able to pass over those increases to passengers, but that's completely impossible. There are large carriers in regional markets. In Quebec, you'd think of Air Canada, and they have a pricing policy that's quite weak. If the rate increases and all kinds of other fees that I referred to in my statement represent some 30-40% of costs. It's huge. So if these constantly increase, the ability for a carrier to hand over those costs to passengers is impossible, especially in a situation where the small carriers, are just overwhelmed. Thank you, Mr. Gagnon.
We're now going to move on to Mr. Bachrach for 2.5 minutes. Mr. Bachrach, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a couple of questions for Mr. Deluce regarding passenger refunds. The first one, all of Porter's current service tariffs specify that in the case of cancellations that are controllable for safety, including your cancellations due to COVID-19 risk, customers should be able to request a refund. Are they currently able to do so?
Mr. Deluce.
Well, what I can tell you is that we've abided by the guidelines that were set out for us, and in addition to that, in many instances, we've exceeded those guidelines, and we're not finding it to be a bottleneck. I think when there are extenuating circumstances, we're examining those situations, and that's probably where we ultimately do end up exceeding the guidelines. So I think back to the specific question, I believe we're not only abiding by but exceeding that which is set out.
Mr. Bachrach.
So following up on that, Mr. Deluce, there were two CTA rulings I'm sure you're familiar with from 2013 and 2014, both filed with the federal court per section 33(1) of the Canada Transportation Act. And they found that it's unreasonable to deny refunds even when the cancellations are uncontrollable. Do you feel like your current cancellations are consistent with these two rulings?
Mr. Deluce.
Yes, I do think they're consistent. I think there's always there are always factors that need to be taken into consideration. I I think it's reasonable for airlines to provide travel vouchers and to make those vouchers extremely flexible and to make sure that they continue to be adapted so that individuals do have access to them, and that when they do have an opportunity to fly, that they're able to do so, or to move those vouchers to whoever will be in a position to fly. So I think that if in our particular instance, I think we're exceeding anything that was set out or that was considered reasonable.
Thank you, Mr. Deleuze. Thank you, Mr. Backrack, and to all witnesses. I do want to express my sincere appreciation on behalf of all members, as well as those that participated in today's meeting. I am sure that all of the information that you provided to us today will, in fact, help populate the report that the analysts will come back, and members will, in fact, deliberate to then bring a report to the House within due time. So once again, I thank you for your time today, as well as members, I thank you for your time today. Wonderful meeting, and we'll see you at our next meeting on Thursday. Have a great evening.